Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. And yes, this is a special report of the ongoing war between the Russian Federation and the Ukraine, along with its NATO and Western European and United States allies. Now, I wanted to do this report because we are receiving reports that the Russians have, in all probability, made the decision to engage NATO drones and possibly aircraft and possibly spy satellites in the theater of operations. Now, why is this happening? Well, the Ukrainian military has launched a series of attacks against Russian assets north of Kharkiv, within the vicinity of Belgorod. They have targeted an array of Russian military assets in this region, to include the possible strikes against S-400s and even a report of an Iskander depot being struck by these long-range ATACMS missile systems. Now, at the same time, the Ukrainians have been fairly successful in engaging Russian assets in the Crimea as well, Sevastopol, and areas in which the Russian Black Sea Fleet has been operating. So what are the Russians looking at doing? Now, we've heard reports that the Russians are looking at possibly shooting down a U.S. Global Hawk. Now look, the Iranians have shot down a Global Hawk. The Iranians have hijacked low observable, stealthy drones that the United States has flown over Iran. They have essentially captured one of those systems, at least in one documented occasion. Now, the Russians, in all probability, are not just preparing to shoot down Global Hawks. We know that the Russians have launched hunter-killer space systems as well within the last couple of weeks, but also within the last several months, the Russians could be placing an array of hunter-killer systems designed to bring down satellites. Look, it's just not the U.S. Global Hawks that are providing information, intelligence about the movement of Russian troops and military assets in the theater of operations. There is a range of systems that are being used, including U.S. spy satellites, both using optical, electro-optical, and radar systems as well, radar-based systems. Additionally, drones, both open source and quote-unquote skunk work, black op projects are being used by the Americans. Now look, yes, that's a picture, an artist impression of the Aurora. Now, obviously, something replaced the SR-71. Was it this aircraft? We just don't know. The Pentagon, the DoD, the Central Intelligence Agency is not going to come out and announce these very, very special projects and these very, very special systems that they have certainly developed and have certainly deployed in this conflict. So you have a range of U.S. assets that are being used in this ongoing conflict. Now, we've just talked about the Global Hawk, that the Russians could engage the Global Hawk. Now, that would be a political message, but it would only reduce the amount of information that the United States is able to get from the region using a variety of assets. The Global Hawk is just a small percentage of information that the United States gets from other systems as well. Now the question is, are the Russians getting ready to go after some of those other systems? Because some of these other systems that are not open source give the United States vast amounts of information and intelligence on Russian movements, Russian troop movements, the deployment of Russian strategic systems, tactical battlefield systems. The United States just does not use the global hawk to identify those systems. As I've just talked about, there are a wide range of systems that are being used. And one of the most important systems, obviously, are space-based systems, satellite systems, remote sensing satellites. These are very, very capable systems. And again, the Russians are putting the pieces into place to engage these systems. Now, when you engage a satellite system, you also have plausible deniability. The reason you have plausible deniability is the United States does not always acknowledge what space-based systems are in orbit, just like the Chinese, just like the Russians. So this could be a very interesting part of the conflict in which we are seeing space-based systems being shot down, and neither side will probably acknowledge what is happening in the space-based sphere or the space-based domain of war. So we'll see what happens. We'll continue to cover, but it looks like another step in the escalation process is certainly starting. Again, Russians very irritated over the fact that the United States is targeting Russian assets deep inside the Russian Federation with some advanced weapon systems. And look, you cannot discount the possibility that the United States has deployed direct kinetic systems, non-open source systems that they could be using in this conflict. I've talked about this before. Eventually, we'll come to the understanding of all these systems that could have been used. But right now, we don't know, and I promise you this, we do not know everything that is being used in this conflict with absolute certainty. So we'll see what happens. It looks like, again, escalation is underway. We will probably see the Russians make a political move in terms of shooting down a global hawk. But again, the global hawk is just a piece of the sensory puzzle that the United States has over the Black Sea and over the entire theater of operations, for that matter. So I just wanted to do a quick synopsis on what we're hearing, what we're seeing, and we will certainly have more updates as we get information. As always, thank you for joining us. Good day.